He's Chase Sr., I'm Harrison Graham. The NBA draft lottery has just occurred. Congrats to the Orlando Magic for getting the number 1 pick. And Chase, you cooked up a quick post-lottery mock draft. We'll get to it in a second, but if anyone missed it, here are the draft lottery results. Real quick, 1 through 14. Orlando got the top selection. OKC with the 4th best odds ended up with the number 2 pick. Houston Rockets landed at 3rd. Sacramento jumped from 7 to 4, and then it was kind of chalk after that. Detroit fell out. They end up with the 5th pick. Indiana, Portland, Pelicans, Spurs, and then 10 through 14, Washington, New York, OKC, Charlotte, and Cleveland. No major changes there. That is the draft lottery results. The top 14 pick, which means we have a fresh mock draft coming up right now here on YouTube. Who is the best player in this draft class? Let us know, and then we'll find out who Chase has going number 1 in his early post-lottery mock draft to the Orlando Magic. Let us know in the comments, and let's get into this mock draft. All right, with the first selection, Chase has Chet Holmgren going to Orlando. Let me pose this question as a part of your evaluation here. What could this mean for Mo Bamba, who finally had a breakout season? He's a restricted free agent.
Yeah, so Mo Bamba had a really good year this past year, really improved from distance, becoming a better three-point shooter. But when you look at the Orlando Magic roster right now, they're set at the guard spot. Jalen Suggs was their selection last year to be their future point guard. Cole Anthony, a really good dynamic scorer, maybe as a starting 2 guard, if not coming in off the bench. Then you look elsewhere on this roster. They're a little bit bereft of some premier talent in the front court. Mo Wagner, really good selection last year at the wing. So there are some really good pieces on this team, and because of that, I think Chet Holmgren fits seamlessly onto this roster. Yes, you have Mo Bamba. Wendell Carter was okay after that trade, but Chet Holmgren, polarizing prospect, one of the most polarizing draft evaluations of all time. That is not a hyperbolic statement to make, because I have serious concerns about how he's able to add on to his frame and how he goes up against a player like Joel Embiid. How does he defend the Joker? How does he go up against another player like Rudy Gobert? And if he doesn't play the 5 spot, is he a 4? With that handle and pull-up ability from 3, can he be more of a wing guy and play a little bit of 3 from time to time? I like the positional versatility. Obviously, the biggest concern with Chet Holmgren, is he going to be able to add on to his frame? What he does lack in size, though, I got to give him props. He is an excellent rim protector and a shot blocker. He's also really good with the three-point stroke, knocking down around 40% of his attempts throughout a majority of the year. And you look at the numbers. He is a walking double-double threat. Love his handle for his size. His pull-up ability and spot-up ability from 3 is really intriguing. Also very good in transition. The only question mark with Chet Holmgren is the biggest question mark. It's his frame, it's his body, it's his lack of size.
We'll spend more time in these early picks, and as we go along, a little less time. Paolo Banchero, I think he's my favorite guy right now. You got him going to the Thunder at 2.
You look at some of the young ascending teams in the NBA right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder are atop that list. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a star. Josh Giddey last year was my favorite player in that draft class. Reminds me a lot with his passing vision of a Ben Simmons, and he does so many great things to impact games. Paolo Banchero would be an excellent fit alongside those players, playing with a Lou Dort. And maybe they go after a DeAndre Ayton in NBA free agency.
Like that.
Paolo Banchero gives me shades of Chris Webber. Really good passer from the high post. Solid three-point shooter. I think he can get a little bit better there. Has to get better on the defensive end. But Oklahoma City is a player development factory led by Sam Presti. The fit here is what excites me the most about Paolo Banchero, my number 2 prospect in this draft class going to the Thunder. Jabari Smith, my number 1 player in this class. Chet Holmgren's number 4 for me, but I have him going number 1 strictly because of fit.
Speaking of Chet Holmgren, will he be a good pro? There's real bust potential here. Type Y for yes, type in for no. Will he work out in the NBA? Curious to see what you folks think down in the comments. Keegan Murray, an early little sleeper shock here. The forward out of Iowa, Chase, going number 3 to the Rockets. One of the best scorers in this class.
Yeah, and at this point in the draft, Jabari Smith, best player available. I have some concerns, though, about how he fits with your number 2 pick from last year. How does he fit with some of the players on that roster.
Jalen Green.
I'm a big fan of Jalen Green. He's a hyper scorer. My pro comp for him going into last year's draft was Bradley Beal. But I'm not sure if Jabari Smith can play with a Jalen Green, and I think the on-court fit would cause a little bit of a clash. You put Keegan Murray in that front court, maybe you find a trade partner for some of the other players on this team in that front court, like a Christian Wood, and Keegan Murray as a guy who is unranked in high school, who has developed his game over time, has an extraordinarily high basketball IQ, very good passer, very good playmaker, very good three-point shooter, a 3-level bucket getter for his size. Yes, he lacks some athleticism, but again, we're talking about fit here, and you have to get the fit right with all of your star players who you have on the Magic, on OKC, and the Houston Rockets, and I don't want to have Jalen Green clash with Jabari Smith. That's why we have Smith going to the Sacramento Kings. And the Kings, the big winners in this draft lottery night, because they sneak into the top 4, and they get my number 1 player in this draft
I would
class.
love this.
Jabari Smith would be a great fit on Sacramento because they don't have a player close to this. And you look at the roster right now and what Jabari Smith would be able to bring to the table. Man, this is really, really fascinating for a variety of reasons. Jabari Smith at Auburn, 17 points per game, 7.5 rebounds. He shot north of 42% from beyond the arc, 43% from the field. The word out of Auburn, this guy is a hard worker. He's diligent about his craft. I love his athleticism at 6'10". He's springy. He's long. Because of that, nobody can block his shot. This is another guy who needs to work on his handle a little bit, but he can find twine and put the biscuit in the basket from anywhere on the floor, and right now the Sacramento Kings do not have that type of guy. De'Aaron Fox is fun. Domantas Sabonis is good. Donovan Mitchell is a good two-way player. Nobody on the team has the game of Jabari Smith, and I think in the long run, he could end up being the number 1 player in this draft class.
Did you say Donovan or Davion?
Davion.
Davion
Yes.
Mitchell. All right, there you go. Subscribe here on YouTube because we're getting you a mock draft before anyone else is, to be quite frank. Link is below. More NBA coverage, news, rumors, draft, free agency. Our NBA coverage is ramping up. And by the way, we're almost at 300,000 subs. Help us get there ASAP. All right, Jaden Ivey to the Pistons. I think your last 2 selections here, Chase, the best value picks so far.
Yeah, I think so too. And for Jaden Ivey, the shades in his game remind me a little bit of a Donovan Mitchell, who we just talked about. A little bit of Darius Garland, Victor Oladipo. The jump that he made from his freshman year to his sophomore campaign was awfully impressive. Now, he's 20 years old. He's a little bit older. I think people put too much stock into that. If this guy and other players who are a little bit older can be an impact player for 8 to 10 years, then who the hell cares? The growth that I saw was impressive, and that shows me that he was in the lab. He's got elite athleticism, excellent ball handling, good perimeter shooting, 17 points per game last year, 37 from the three-point line, 73% from the free throw line, so that shows me that the form is intact. Jaden Ivey has no fear. He can play on ball, off ball. That can be said also for Cade Cunningham, who was excellent in his rookie year. Last couple months, Cade Cunningham was a blossoming superstar. I think he can play on the floor with Jaden Ivey because both of those players can play the 1 and the 2 and be elite-level playmakers at both of those guard spots.
And that's really the key for Detroit, finding someone that meshes with Cade Cunningham.
A little bit of a risk, but I like it.
So we'll ask you, can they fit together? Type F for fit, type B for bad fit. Get your votes in down in the comments. One of your favorite players in this class, Benedict Mathurin, who is capable of really scoring the basketball, good athlete as well. He lands in Indiana.
From sideline to sideline, baseline to baseline, this guy moves extraordinarily well. He has the upside scoring of a Jamal Crawford, but also has the length and the similar game of a Karis LeVert. Great size at 6'6", 210, and he's a knockdown shooter with shot-making ability off the dribble, which I think is really important to have as your game translates to the NBA level. He's a breathtaking athlete, and when you put on his highlights, this guy throws down some crazy dunks. And yes, you have Tyrese Halliburton, who is going to be your point guard. I think he's a blossoming superstar as well. Benedict Mathurin, more of that guard wing type too. In transition, those two guys can really cause havoc. and play some really, really exciting basketball.
One of the biggest wild cards in this draft, Shaedon Sharpe, going to a team here in Portland who, quite frankly, needs to hit on this pick, Chase. Risky, but maybe you're getting one of the talented, if not the most talented players in this draft, Shaedon Sharpe to Portland.
If Shaedon Sharpe played at Kentucky this past year, he could have put together a resume that made him the number one player in this class. He didn't play for Kentucky because of eligibility issues. Fascinating story with him. He was unranked throughout much of his high school career. Going into his final high school season, he goes from 6'4" to 6'6", and within that was able to grow within his body, become a really good athlete, and scoring-wise, I watch him and I'm like, he can become a Bradley Beal or a Jalen Green. He really is that good. He's also the biggest wild card of this draft class because we literally didn't see him play at all at the college level and didn't play at all last year. So he's a wild card. It's a little bit of a risk. But who better to learn from than Damian Lillard? And then you have a really good, interesting roster where he can play at that wing spot alongside Anthony Simons if you bring him back, and Damian Lillard, and give you a really upside scorer who won't have pressure on him, and he'll have a bunch of open looks because of those aforementioned offensive juggernauts.
I like Johnny Davis, Chase, who was a little inefficient last year, but Wisconsin asked him to do a lot on both ends. I think if you're the Pelicans and you get this guy, you're a team ready to win next year. I would love this fit.
Yeah, and arguably you can say that he was the best scorer in college basketball last year. 20 points per game. The big concern for him, he only shot 33% from downtown. 78% free throw shooter. Now, when you look at him, you're like, okay, the highest upside for Johnny Davis is a Chris Middleton. Kind of has a similar release where he releases it from up high, and I think the Milwaukee Bucks really missed Chris Middleton in that second-round series against the Boston Celtics. He's a bucket getter, thrives from mid-range, needs to get better from deep, plays really, really good defense, and I like the fit here too because he can come in off the bench and be that go-to guy throughout stretches of the game. And with that, New Orleans Pelicans, if they get Johnny Davis, they become a serious factor in the Western Conference, and I don't think that's an exaggeration if Zion Williamson comes back healthy.
The NBA Conference Finals are underway, and if you want to go bet on either the West or the East, or just on NBA title odds in general, you can do so. Chatsports.com/bet. Use our promo code CHAT125 to get a 125% deposit bonus. Put that $100, get $125 when you sign up. Game 1 odds of the Western Conference Finals tomorrow. Warriors 5-point favorites. The over-under at 214.5. Hey, I'm gassing the Mavs, baby. Let's ride. Let us know. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code CHAT125. Producer Sam really wants you guys to know that he likes the over in this one. So take his betting advice or don't. Let us go ahead and do it. Chatsports.com/bet. All right, as we get later in here, Chase, A.J. Griffin to the Spurs. Thoughts on this selection?
You need a really good player alongside DeJounte Murray, and for a long time, San Antonio has been a very mediocre team that is just really flatlined. They've been playing for a spot in the play-in tournament. They need a guy who can move the needle, and I think over time, A.J. Griffin can become that type of player. There are some concerns about him, though. Missed 2 years in high school with knee and ankle injuries. He kind of reminds me of a three-point shooting Jimmy Butler. He does have a really wide base that I think is going to have his feet get closer together over time, but I do like his ability to stretch the floor a little bit, and the upside is certainly there. 10 points per game, 48% from three last year, which is really intriguing for me. And as a guy who can catch off the pass from DeJounte Murray, I do like the fit alongside another one of those young and emerging players in the NBA. Is the talent pool at the NBA level crazy right now?
Jeremy Sohan is kind of a tweener out of Baylor, but a pretty good athlete. He can score at all three levels too, Chase. You got him going to Washington.
The big looming question with Washington is Bradley Beal going to return? Are you going to sign him to a contract extension? Are you going to trade him to Philadelphia for a player like James Harden? Obviously, that impacts the draft plans for Washington, but right now you look at this team and you're like, okay, Rui Hachimura's on the squad. He's certainly shown some flashes, and he has. Jeremy Sohan, he does things to impact games like Ben Simmons. And let's talk about the good in Ben Simmons. Great vision from the high post. He's an excellent passer. I think Sohan needs to become a better offensive player and fine-tune his skills there. but good defensively, high basketball IQ, very good passer, and finds a way to put his fingerprints on the game in a variety of areas, and that's what Washington needs. They need guys who can just be elite-level players in multiple areas. I think Sochan can become that, and he has great hair.
Yeah, he does. There's no doubt about that. Who is the most slept-on player in the NBA draft? Maybe Sochan fits that bill. Maybe it's someone we're about to get to. Let us know down in the comments. All right, 11 through 14 here. I think Ochai Agbaji is a plug-and-play contributor right away. 4-year starter at Kansas. Chase just won a national championship.
And that's why I have him going to the New York Knicks. I understand that New York had a down year.
They need
but they're
winners.
Also in a position to win, and they need to change the culture. They need winners, and that's what Agbaji is able to do. 20 points per game last year, 41% from three. I don't care about his age at 22 because if he can come in and impact games right away and he can be a really good player for you for several years, then his age doesn't matter.
Desmond Bain, who said
especially if
that?
his career extends into him being in his early to mid-30s. Who cares if this guy's 22 years old, and since when did that become old? This guy has a great feel for the game, really good on-ball defense, and playing alongside some of the players on that team as a very good wing player, like the fit here too.
Yeah, Desmond Bain worked out pretty
Exactly
well as
right.
a 22-year-old prospect. Jalen Duren, the center out of Memphis, going to OKC.
Raw and needs to become a better offensive player. Cannot shoot for the life of him, right? But if OKC doesn't go after a player like DeAndre Ayton, they need a needle mover at the center spot, and the upside of Duren as a rim protector and rim runner, playing with the passing ability of Josh Giddey and the playmaking ability of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Duren can be a very good player on that team.
Mark Williams, another big, going to Charlotte here. Maybe a big to pair up with LaMelo Ball.
And that's my point there. Get a big to play with LaMelo Ball, who has excellent vision, is a sieve defensively, but who cares? On the open floor, especially if they hire Mike D'Antoni.
Oh, please do it.
That'll be fun. And Mark Williams is a good enough athlete to run the floor with LaMelo Ball. They, too, need a center. They bring back Miles Bridges. We'll see what happens with Gordon Hayward. They're good at the guard spot, as we've been talking about. They need a center there.
And the final pick of this post-lottery mock draft, Dyson Daniels, who played for the G League Ignite.
The thought process here is that they move on from Colin Sexton because of the elite play of Darius Garland last year, who was an NBA All-Star when the NBA All-Star game was hosted in Cleveland. And the pressure won't really be on Dyson Daniels, who is very, very raw, to be an impact player right from the get-go. And instead, he can be a backup to Darius Garland. He was terrible shooting the basketball with the G League Ignite. But the other elements of his game, pretty fascinating, and they certainly do intrigue me. And this Cleveland roster, look, they made it into the play-in tournament. They didn't make it into the NBA playoffs. They're really deep.
Yeah.
And there are a couple players deep at each spot, so why not swing away for a guy who down the road can be really, really good and impress a lot of people, and maybe you look back on this draft and say, Dyson Daniels should have been a top 10 guy.
Grade this mock draft. Scale it from 1 to 100. We'll certainly have more mock drafts to come as we get closer and closer to the NBA draft in late June. Scale it from 1 to 100 and let us know.